Okay, y'all. So we tried to do the screen share and it did not work. So we are trying again. I did share a link to my slides if anybody wanted to look at them that way. I was like well into it too, and it was like, you're not live anymore. And then I looked, and I was like, I went way past 27 seconds. So, all right. Well, thank you for bearing with me here. It is time to talk Kegels, or Kegels is actually the correct pronunciation. So we're doing all pelvic floor health chat today. As I mentioned earlier, for anyone that's new, I wanted to introduce myself. So if you're new, coming to one. If you've been here, you've seen me go live at least once before, comment A2. So I am sexual health certified. I love dogs. I love coffee. I love to travel. I like to say I'm a business baddie by day and a vegetarian by night and a self-proclaimed comedian. And my whole thing is empowering women to shamelessly own your personal pleasure. Disclaimer for anything I'm sharing tonight, I am not a doctor. I've done my research and I'm just sharing it with you to empower you. But we're not diagnosing or any of that tonight. It's just so you can know I can make my orgasms more intense. Oh, I'm not supposed to have painful sex. Like, there's something I can do about it. Yes. So, and for you to make the decisions that are going to be best for you, to address any problems that you're having. So first thing about why just Kegeling in general. So it is the new start of the year. A lot of people are focused on their fitness goals. And, while you're at the gym, why not think about your muscles in the bedroom? Okay? So your pelvic floor exercises, these workouts are not only important to strengthen your vagina post-childbirth, or if you're peeing when you're sneezing and peeing, but it also can help you have more intensity with your orgasm. Comment an O down below. I don't care if you're watching on replay or live. If you're listening and you want more intense orgasms, comment an O down below. Now, there's actually two different types of, so your whole pelvic floor, you've got your urethra, you've got also anal as well, and vaginal, when we're talking about pelvic floor, just like overall. But you actually, when you have if someone has pelvic floor dysfunction, there's two different types you can have. You can basically either have a weak or a tight pelvic floor. Now, if you have a tight pelvic floor, it's not like, oh my God, you're so tight, that's so good. It's like painful. And so we're going to talk about what are some things that could cause pelvic floor dysfunction, and also like what is a weak pelvic floor versus what is a tight pelvic floor. If you have a weak pelvic floor, Kegels are going to make things better for you. So that's like you're peeing, you're sneezing, that's kind of like the most common one, right? But if you have a tight pelvic floor, Kegels are actually going to make things worse for you. Really, like, I'm going to give you some examples, but really you need to see a pelvic floor therapist, because they will actually be able to tell you what's going on and like what are the best exercises for you. But I know not a lot of people actually have access to healthcare. It is very expensive. So I'm going to give you a guide and some things that you can also do for at home kind of like test, and then you can make a decision what's going to be best for you. So pelvic floor dysfunction, things that can cause it: not using those muscles, like underuse. If you've had a trauma or injury, that happened to me actually. I had my wreck like 2 years ago, and I've shared this with a lot of people. I have a 27 centimeter hematoma on my abdomen that has not gone away. I'm actually going to see a doctor tomorrow to see about getting it drained. But I have all of that extra pressure, and so I've actually started to have pelvic floor problems because of like all of that, like trauma and wreck from my wreck. So that can cause it. Also, weight of the uterus during pregnancy, vaginal childbirth, obesity, chronic constipation, straining when you poo. So if you do that, stop straining when you poo, girl. Constant coughing, even your hormones. So like when you're pregnant, they're changing and going through menopause, painful periods, endometriosis. I'm not saying if you have these problems that you have pelvic floor dysfunction, but these are the types of things that cause it. Even sitting at your desk all day, like tons of different things. Now, I mentioned there's 2 different types of pelvic floor dysfunctions, right? So the first one, comment weak. The first one was weak, W-E-A-K. So I know that y'all are following along. And then the other one was, I'm calling it a tight pelvic floor, T-I-G-H-T. Now, it's not like a tight, like, oh my God, girl. It's like painful. We'll get to it. So a weak pelvic floor is the one like Kegels are going to benefit, right? So that's like leakage in your bladder, difficulty holding back gas, just letting it rip. You can't help it though, you know. Pelvic heaviness or prolapse, low back, pelvic or tailbone, decreased sensation during sex, or delayed or absent orgasms. We don't want that. We want to have all the orgasms, all the sensations, right? So these are examples of things that Kegels can help. But as I mentioned, a doctor can like really tell you like what's going to be best and to help. But typically a weak pelvic floor, Kegels are going to help. Now, it doesn't mean like it's weak or tight just based on things, because there's other factors too. So again, we're not diagnosing, but this can give you an idea of what could be going on. If you have a tight pelvic floor, so Kegels are not good for a tight pelvic floor. So tight pelvic floor is going to be like chronic constipation, pain during sex, intercourse, outercourse, or orgasm, difficulty starting or stopping urine flow, painful urination, urinary urgency and or frequency, low back, pelvic, or tailbone pain. And you know, notice that that was also a symptom of an underactive or weak, and those are also symptoms of overactive and tight. So that's what I'm saying, like, you can't really diagnose yourself just based off of this, because there's other things, but this can kind of help get you some ideas. But also, if you're doing your Kegels and you notice things are getting worse, that could be a sign that it's a tight pelvic floor and you really need to go see a doctor. So that's a good way to test too. So a way you can check at home, if you want to do, like, if you're not able to go to a doctor and you want to do some checks at home, there's 3 different things you can do to try. So one is to tune into your symptoms, decode your Kegel, and then the other is to dive deeper. So I'm going to get into these, and then we're going to talk about the types of Kegels there are. So if you want to check, okay, what kind of dysfunction I have, again, I'm saying go to a doctor, but if you don't have, if that's not an option, doing these 3 things is a good way to kind of do it. And we can actually, if you guys want, we can like do a test together. So for this, you need to actually sit down and put your feet flat on the floor. But again, going to pelvic floor physical therapist can assess if your muscles and determine if they're too tight, too weak, or somewhere in the middle. And then they can guide you for treatment options. But in the meantime, we can do this 3 easy self-check together so that you can understand your pelvic floor muscle. So the first one is to tune into your symptoms, okay? So as I've mentioned many times, your symptoms alone are usually not enough to know like the full picture of your pelvic floor health, but it is a really good place to start if you're wondering about like pelvic floor muscle dysfunction. So if you experience any of the things we talked about, chronic constipation, pain, your urinary urgency or frequency, those things could be a tight or constipation tight pelvic floor. A weak pelvic floor would be like leakage, lower back pain, decreased sensation, delayed or absent orgasms, okay? So just tune into like what your symptoms are and kind of think about, okay, well, where do I fall in here? The other is to decode your Kegels. So again, sit down on a chair with a flat, firm surface. Make sure your feet, again, are flat on the floor. You're sitting up straight with your sit bones so that you can feel your vulva press gently into the chair, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to contract and squeeze your pelvic floor muscles and to lift your vulva up away from the chair. And feel, so go ahead and do that. So basically you're going to sit up, make sure you feel your vulva on the seat, and then you're going to contract your pelvic floor muscles, lift your vulva up away from the chair. So feel like the movement when you're trying to hold back gas or stop the flow of urine. So think about that. How does it feel? Is it strong? Is it difficult? What does it feel like to you? And feel free to comment if you're comfortable. It was strong. My muscles were strong, or my muscles were, it was difficult. Or easy, or whatever. Okay, and what about the contraction? So now hold it for a few seconds. If you're able to, then release your contraction and pay attention to the way it feels when you release your pelvic floor. So how did it feel? Was it easy and fastish to relax? It felt slow and awkward. You kind of had to force yourself to relax, or you feel like it's still contracted. So those are some things you can think of. Now, if it's difficult or impossible to contract your pelvic floor muscles, or if you could contract it, but it was too hard to hold and then quickly release, then your pelvic floors are typically going to mean they're weak, okay? So Kegels can help. Now, if you have pelvic floor tightness and you notice that the contraction felt difficult or weak, or releasing the contraction was too difficult, tight pelvic floor muscles can be held tight, and so that can make it difficult to release the contraction, okay? So the third thing is to take a deeper dive into it. So you can do the pelvic floor assessment is great to understanding your body, but there are other things you can pay attention to better understand if your pelvic floor muscles are tight, weak, or a combination of both. So if your muscles are underactive or weak, you might notice some of these during your pelvic floor assessment. Minimum to no perineal, I can't even hardly say the word, movement when observing that area mobility in the moving mirror. Or you may find yourself substituting other muscles like your inner thighs or glutes to help you accomplish the movement. When you cough or bear down and you notice bladder leakage or tissue dripping down your vaginal opening, these are all signs of a weak pelvic floor. When pushing your muscles, they're pain-free and feel a bit softer, then expect it. You can compare it to how it feels to your thigh muscles. They should feel like they have the same tone. Now, conversely, if your muscles are tight, so that once I just went over, Kegels will help, right? Because the weak, underactive, Kegels are good for, but the overactive tight, they are not. So if your muscles are tight, you might notice the falling. So if you felt like it was difficult or weak to contract the pelvic floor muscles, there was tightness or weakness. If it felt impossible to release your muscles from the pelvic floor contraction, and when you lengthen your muscles, you feel like it's bulge or just super impossible. When pushing your pelvic floor muscles internally or externally, if they feel tight or you notice muscle knots, or it's super uncomfortable, painful to push on. Those are signs that your pelvic floor could be too tight, okay? So, now that we've gone through that, if you feel comfortable sharing, if you think yours is too tight or too weak, feel free to comment, or you think it's in the middle, or you felt really good about it. So the next thing we want to talk about is, should you try Kegel exercises? Now, if you're looking to strengthen your muscles, so if they're weak, then yes. If they're tight, then that's not going to work. Definitely need to go to a physical, pelvic floor physical therapist. Now, with our Kegels, you can just do them 5 minutes a day, and it'll help with the strengthening, which also helps increase sexual pleasure and intensity. Now, how to Kegel? Well, we just did some, right? We were like basically observing kind of like so we kind of started that process, right? So you're squeezing your pelvic muscles, basically pulling the vulva up. Hold for 2 to 3 seconds and then rest for 3 seconds. And you want to do it 10 times and like 2 to 3 times a day. So basically it's like when you're working out at the gym, you know, you're doing your reps, and so you got to get those reps in. And the same thing, you can do them without, but if you do it with, it's going to make them even stronger from the weights. And we have 3 different options. So we have a Kegel training 2-piece set, where it has one that's less than an ounce and one that's just right over an ounce. We have one that's called Total V that actually has 3 different exercises. This one is my favorite of the ones that don't vibrate, because you have 3 different options, and I like the colors. I just think they're pretty. But you have 3 different options, and the first one is 1.9 ounces, the second is 2.6, and the third is 3.4. So you even go up to even stronger. And then the last one, so the first one was Kegel training 2-piece set. The second one was Total V. And then the third one is Wait For It. This one has been the most popular because Wait For It has a remote and it vibrates. So it's like all in one. So you can do your Kegels and you can be like, oh, I did them. I'm such a good girl. I'm going to reward myself. Yeah. So that's the last one. Wait For It. And there's 2 different weights with that one as well. And you get the added vibration, and it's rechargeable and waterproof. Now, with the Kegels and with your exercises, do not leave it by your bedstand. You will never do them. You need to have it literally have it by your toothbrush, or have it in the shower so that it's somewhere that you see it and it's part of your daily routine. So think about that. Make sure it's somewhere you're going to do it and be where you can get regular access to it. I will comment the link below if it will let me comment. Well, I'll comment it afterwards. And what I'm going to do for the giveaway tonight, if anyone gets any of the Kegels, basically what I'll do is go ahead and get yourself a tote. And then I'll look at whoever did get those, and I'll do a drawing on Friday. And one person, I'll basically reimburse you for the tote, will be the giveaway. So if you purchase the Kegel set and a tote, I will put you into a drawing, and whoever wins, I will give you back the $16 for the toy tote. So thank y'all so much. Thanks for running through the tech problems that we had. If you enjoyed this and found it helpful, definitely invite your friends to the group and tag them in this video so that they can watch it and hopefully learn some things too. Y'all have a good night, and give me some hearts if you learned something new. Thank you.